back to Don't Forget the Champagne. I'm Nichelle, and this is Wedding Planning 101. Today, we're going to be talking about wedding planners, and we're not going to be talking about paper planners. Maybe we will do that at some point, or digital planners. We're going to be talking about the person of wedding planner. We also aren't going to spend too much time talking about wedding coordinators in this video. I'll do a separate video on that, but we are going to talk about the differences between those two because it's not necessarily a clear distinction. The first thing I want to talk about is, should you hire a wedding planner? And you might expect my answer to be a yes, since that is what I do, but I don't think it's true for everyone. You definitely don't need one. About 70%, probably a little more than that, of weddings are planned without a wedding planner, like without the person of a wedding planner. You can definitely plan a wedding without one. Of course, I find their position valuable. That's what I do. That's why I do what I do, but they're not 100% necessary for most couples. So let's talk about a few situations in which you probably don't need a wedding planner. First one is a very full service venue. And I say very in front of that full service because I think it needs to be more than just like they include your linens. You want to have a venue if the catering is on site, so it's the same catering company that they always use, or one that's in-house. If they do provide all your rentals and things, if they provide a day of coordinator, which is a little bit different than a venue coordinator. So a venue coordinator is going to work with you to make sure the venue stays safe. That's their number one priority. A day of coordinator is with you the whole day to make sure your day runs smoothly. So they're slightly different, and sometimes venue coordinators will be called day of coordinators in venue packages. So just make sure you're really clear on what those responsibilities are if you're trying to make sure you have a day of coordinator. Also, another big one is, do they kind of include design as part of their package? Do they include do they have a florist that they work with that also does design packages with you? That sort of stuff. If like everything is included and you don't have a lot of options as far as the professionals, and the professionals are pretty full service, you're not going to be kind of having to put together your own design plan, your own rental plan, your own floor plans, those sorts of things, then you probably could go without a wedding planner, because all of those different professionals added together will kind of create their own wedding planner. Another thing, probably the most common one, is your budget just doesn't have room for a wedding planner. Wedding planners can be pretty expensive, and I would say you don't want to spend more than 10 to maybe 15% of your budget on a wedding planner. There are some really affordable options if you are wanting a planner but your budget is on the smaller side. You're probably going to have to go with a newer person, so someone who's been in the industry for a little less time, because their goal will probably be to build up a little bit of a reputation. They might want to use you as a reference, so you might be able to negotiate a price a little bit lower if you're working with someone newer. My prices are pretty low for my region because I've only been doing this on my own for a little bit of time, even though I do have experience, and you definitely want someone with a little bit of experience. You don't want them to be like this is their first wedding they've ever done, but they might have less experience on their own, or maybe they're transitioning from another event field into weddings. Those can be a little bit more affordable. Also, sometimes wedding planners are willing to negotiate a little bit on what their packages look like. So even if they only have like a full service package, sometimes, not all planners, but some planners will be able to negotiate down a little bit. You might have to do a little bit more legwork, but you'll still have a little bit of extra help with that professional. The last reason you might not want a planner at all is if you don't want one. So if you want to do everything by yourself, you have the time, you don't want to delegate stuff, you want to be involved in every single decision, but if you don't want someone kind of filtering things through, or you don't want someone to be the contact person and you want to be doing all of that legwork because you like to be in control of those sorts of things, then maybe a planner isn't the best bet for you. A wedding planner doesn't have like super secret knowledge. Pretty much everything can be found online. Of course, there are some things that experience really does help, but you can Google most things. Is it going to be a lot of legwork? Absolutely, but you can do it. There are a few situations in which I would especially encourage you to hire a planner. The first situation which I really recommend you hire a planner is if you are doing a wedding in a non-traditional venue. What I mean by that is a venue that has not hosted a wedding or very many weddings before. So this might be like your backyard, which probably hasn't hosted a wedding. Restaurants, community centers, places that are just not as accustomed to hosting a wedding. If you're going with a traditional wedding venue, they'll know a lot of the ins and outs and be able to kind of guide you and make sure you're on the right track. If you're doing a backyard wedding, one, you're gonna have to bring in literally everything, and it's just a lot more work and a lot more things can go wrong, and you don't really have that built-in security of having a venue that knows what's happening. So having a planner who knows what's happening is crucial. Another thing that I would really recommend looking into a planner is if you were doing a long distance wedding. So what I mean by that is if you're planning a wedding not where you currently live. So whether you're planning a wedding back in your hometown or you're doing a destination wedding or something like that, I think hiring a planner can be really, really helpful. And I would recommend hiring a planner at the destination you're at. I know sometimes planners will do destination, so your planner will be with you and they'll plan the long distance. I personally think it is better to hire a planner in that area because they'll be familiar with all of the vendors and things, and they can make sure everything's going well. With a long distance planning process, you're not going to be able to double check those things because you won't be there in person. And then finally, if you just don't have time, wedding planning is an extraordinarily time-consuming process, and even if you hire a planner, there's going to be a lot of time that you put into it, but a planner can drastically reduce the amount of time. It's going to reduce the number of emails you're seeing. It's going to reduce the amount of Googling and searching you're going to have to do. They can just really streamline the process for you and make, even though you're going to be making the decisions, they will kind of gather all the information together for you. So it's like having an assistant to like make your life easier. So if you are in a really busy season of life, you're planning to move, you have a bunch of kids, you are in grad school, you have a just really demanding career, or you just aren't interested in spending all your free time wedding planning, then consider hiring a wedding planner just to help you take a little bit of that time off of your plate. Okay, so if you are deciding that you do want to do a wedding planner, here are some things I think you should keep in mind as you look through various planners. The first thing is the packages. There is no industry standard. A full service wedding planner with one company is going to look completely different than a full service planner with another company. So you want to make sure you're really reading in depth into those packages and figuring out exactly what elements are important to you. The major things that I think you should look for within those packages are how many meetings are included in your package. So for my packages, my unlimited package includes unlimited meetings, and then I have a medium tier package that includes like one meeting a month for 6 to 9 months. So 6 to 9 meetings. And then I have just my day of package, which actually starts about 6 weeks out and includes 2 to 3 meetings. So kind of look in and see what level of meeting or phone calls or emails that are included. And then another thing is, how do vendor referrals work? Sometimes they'll be like, you need to find your own vendors, but I'll work on vendor communication. Like I'll do the scheduling. I might do the initial phone call. The way I do it, I'll kind of take all the information I have based on your budget, your vision for the day, where your wedding is at, all that information. I will contact the vendors and kind of do an initial contact to make sure they kind of check all those basic boxes. And then I'll forward any vendors that I think would be a good fit along to you. I normally do about 2 to 3 at a time, and then from there you can kind of decide if they are going to work or if not, and I need to go look for some more. So that's something that's hugely important, because if you're going to be responsible for still looking at all your vendors, then maybe that's not a planner that's going to be a good fit for you because you want to take that off your plate. Or maybe if you found all your vendors already and you know who you want, my package wouldn't make a lot of sense for you because you already have all of that pulled together. And then another thing that I think is really crucial is, do they help with budget management? I think this is a part of wedding planning that is incredibly stressful and can be hard if you've never planned a wedding before, because knowing what you should budget for different things can be difficult. Like, what is reasonable to budget for a cake? So I think this is an important feature to look for in a wedding planner, just so they can make sure that you are staying on budget, because you don't want to be spending thousands of extra dollars. No one wants that. And then the last thing that I think you should look for is, do they do design as well? So will they help you bring together floral elements and elements that you buy? Will they DIY projects for you? Is that part of their package? That can sometimes be a separate thing. in wedding planners. And sometimes your floral team will actually be your wedding designer, and you won't need the design element from your planner. So make sure that it's very clear whether they do design and DIY work or not. And then once you kind of know the packages, then you'll have to look at pricing. So you want to make sure you know what's in the packages first, so you can make sure you're comparing apples to apples. You don't want to be comparing a price of someone who's super full service, is going to meet with you unlimited times, is going to put all your vendors together, is going to do your design, with someone who like will help you 6 weeks out put together your timeline. Those are obviously going to be priced very differently. So make sure you're really clear on what's included in those packages before you start comparing prices. Pricing. There's a few different ways that wedding planners will price their weddings. The first one, and the one that I've seen most commonly, is packages. So there's kind of a basic package, and sometimes there might be some add-ons. You know, if you go over the number of meetings, there might be an hourly cost, or you might have to pay travel fees, things like that. But you'll have kind of a baseline package that's going to be the bulk of the cost to you to hire that planner. Another one is an hourly rate. So they should be able to kind of give you an estimate of how many hours they think they'll put in, and then like similar to like if you were hiring a lawyer, you would pay their work hourly. That one I've seen less frequently. And then a percentage, which is typically anywhere from 5 to 10% of your total event. The percent ones I tend to see more on larger events. So large scale corporate and nonprofit events almost always do percent based pricing. And then also some like larger celebrity wedding planners. So like Justin Bieber's wedding planner, have you seen it? I'm pretty sure she does percent-based pricing. 10% is pretty much the industry standard for those large-scale weddings. Like what is included in those packages, there is no standard pricing. You are going to find wedding planners at vastly different price points. You're going to be able to find wedding planners for like $1,500 all the way up to like tens of thousands of dollars. So it really depends where your budget's at, like we talked about, and also what you're looking for. Because I would hope, and typically, that $10,000 planner is going to come with a lot more experience. They're going to include a lot more in their package. You might have multiple people working on your wedding, where that $1,500 planner is probably a little less experienced. There might be a little less included in their package. It'll probably just be them working on your wedding. So it's kind of just figuring out where it makes sense for your needs and your budget meet. And hopefully you can find a planner that works for you. The next thing you want to look at is their communication style. I think this is vastly important and something that people don't always think about. How are they going to be communicating these things to you? Are you going to be on the phone with them all the time? Do you need to have in-person meetings like pretty frequently? Do they do things via email? And if they do things via email or via phone or whatever, is it going to be like as soon as they get something they'll forward it along? Is it like pretty consistent? Or is there going to be like one email per week, one email per month that's going to let you know next steps? The way I do it is I have a set number of meetings per package, and those meetings can either be phone calls or meetings or like Skype calls, whatever is the most convenient for you. And then I also do a weekly email that lets you know kind of where we are in the planning process, what your next steps are, what I'm working on, and any other updates. So that's kind of the main process. So those touch points are pretty much it. If you have emergency things, you can always reach out in between, but mainly my communication is just these weekly emails and then monthly-ish phone calls and meetings. So it's a little less frequent. If you want someone who you can be on the phone with all the time, then maybe my package doesn't make sense for you. Or maybe it is too frequent for you. You just kind of want to know when stuff is happening and you don't want all of these like weekly updates. You don't care. So make sure to talk with your planner about what your expectations are for communication and what they include in their packages as far as communication. And the last thing, and I think the most important thing, is personality. Your wedding planner is someone you're going to be spending a lot of time with during a very stressful season of your life. Planning a wedding is stressful for like 90% of people. 10% of people love it and they become wedding planners. It is really stressful, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. You're going to be making some really intimate decisions, whether that's like first dance songs or photographers, like really personal decisions, and you want to make sure that you have a really good relationship with them. You'll also be spending a lot of time with them on your wedding day as they kind of make sure the flow of events goes well and check in with you. So you want to make sure that your personality vibes with them. So like your photographer, do not book them until you've had either a phone call or a in-person meeting, so you can make sure that they are a good fit. And I would also recommend making sure to check in with a couple wedding planners. You might fall in love with the first one because like they're great, but like most wedding planners are pretty good with people and like meeting people. So you want to make sure you meet with a few of them just to make sure you find the best one for you. Okay, that is all I have for a conversation around wedding planners. Let me know if you have any questions about hiring a wedding planner. Like I said, this didn't include day of coordinators. I talked briefly on that, but I will do a whole video on day of coordinators if that is the route you're going at some point during this series, because I do think they're important, but they are different than wedding planners because they're not going to be along on the wedding planning process. They will mostly just be there in the weeks leading up to your wedding and on your wedding day. So we will talk about them later, but if you have questions about them, you have questions about wedding planners or any wedding planning questions or any questions in general, go ahead and leave a comment down below and subscribe to this channel if you are interested in more wedding planning videos. We're going to continue this wedding planning 101 series and then hopefully be adding some more fun videos to the mix as well. So get excited. All right, I will talk with you soon. Bye.